HSReplay.net has been super quick with the new stats, and we already can see what are the best performing decks after the latest nerfs to Pally, Demon Hunter, and Hunter. In this video I will go over 5 of the best decks right now, and we'll also check out what the nerf classes are looking like after the latest nerfs. So if you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Now let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
Starting off with Pally, and looking at from the latest nerfs, we can see that it actually toned down the deck quite nicely. Like, the class is not looking as oppressive, at least for day one. We're still seeing a lot of sample size, like 12,000 games, but this stat used to look like 60 plus the last time I checked it. It's actually turning out to be quite the effective nerf so far. Like, the best performer is Aggro Paladin. It's still running counts and whatnot, it's not even a showdown list, so that's interesting. Urban Paladin is actually holding up nicely, and they're still running Order in the Court, obviously. But yeah, Paladin actually seems to be looking a little bit healthier now. It's still a great deck, obviously, but these stats were 62, 64, that kind of deal couple of days ago, so the nerf actually did its job. Despite a lot of people, including me, thinking it was far from enough, it might actually be an okay spot for now at least. Like, it is a little bit more refreshing. Checking out Demon Hunter, here we're seeing that Aggro Demon Hunter is quite lower now, sitting at about 55-ish, 53 more like it, so I guess that also fixed the problem. Like, yeah, they can still kind of OTK you from hand as soon as, like, turn 5, turn 6 if they're lucky enough. But they're no longer going to be coining this out on turn 2, sticking it, and then sticking it to you closely afterwards. So I guess that nerf was also not a bad idea. And looking at Hunter, honestly, it wasn't looking that amazing to begin with for Beast Hunter at least. But now it's looking like a bottom tier 2 kind of deal, sitting at 53.6 with 2,000 games. So people have been thoroughly testing this 2-mana Germonger, but it's not the powerhouse of a deck it used to be. Let's also check out Warlock, and as you see, mining Warlock seems to be an absolute meme now. Like, yikes. Haven't seen such a big difference through a single nerf, but honestly the rework, it's not as small as some people might think. Like, dealing only 7 damage from 10 back when this came out, you could literally kill the opponent with only 3 snakes if he was at 30 health, so that's quite the tall ask now. Like, 5 instead of 3, that is a lot more. So maybe 8 damage would have been the healthier spot, something like that, because that would have required you 4 snakes. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna be crying too much about mining Warlock myself. I don't know about you. Okay, so starting off with the first best deck, we have Dragon Druid doing very amazingly well. It has been a great deck before the nerfs, and now after the nerfs it's gonna be even better. The deck looks pretty standard. It is running back the Snapdragons. We only have 1 Peaceful Piper in here, and the deck is actually quite cheap. Like, it's about 4,000 dust, so it's actually a budget deck in today's day and age. We're still running the good amount of ramp with a single copy of a Seedsman. We have a couple of Splish Splash Whelps, which are helping pretty well. Take to the Skies to get extra stuff. Desert Matrons are insanely good. The Time Lost Proto Drake, a lot of people think this card is bad, but not only is this a 4/5 4-mana dragon, it also gives you an extra random dragon, and that alone is enough for this card to be worth. Like, a lot of the times you want to be having a bunch of dragons in your hand to get bigger dragon golems and whatnot. So having an extra dragon, even if it's a bad one, it's still gonna be good, but you also run the risk of actually getting a good one, like an extra Dragon Golem, like an extra Fae, that kind of deal, so can't say no to that. Matchup-wise, we don't have that much stats, but Rainbow Mage is gonna be a good one for you, so you got that going for you, which is nice. I'm actually gonna go with Showdown in Badlands, see how that looks, and the stats are not that much more populated, but you were pretty great against Aggro Demon Hunters, as well as against Plague Death Knight, so that's pretty nice, and 50-50 against Highlander Shaman, can't ask for much more than that. Mulligan-wise, here's what the stats show going first, and yeah, Splish Splash Whelp is always going to be insanely good for you. Desert Matron is actually pretty decent of a keep, even though it's kind of scary keeping a 4-drop on turn 1 when going first, but this is what the stats show here. Summer Flower Child, especially if you're curving into it, can be great. Spinetail Drake, I wouldn't really consider keeping it. I think this was this good for things like Aggro Demon Hunter, but nowadays that's not going to be a problem. Aquatic form makes a lot of sense. Cactus is amazing. Take to the Skies, I guess, makes enough sense as well. And also Snapdragon and Peaceful Piper are also pretty okay. Innervate is also something to consider. Like, if you have this into a turn 1 Splish Splash, that can be pretty amazing too. But that's about it for going first. As for when going second, it's not that much different, but here even Ajuran Gardens makes some sense. Like, you don't want to be keeping this when going first, you actually want to buff a decent amount of hand size. When you're on turn 4, 5, that kind of deal, so keep that in mind. But yeah, all around is the same stuff, so not that much different. For other good Druid decks right now, Highlander is also doing pretty well, sitting at 60%, so you can definitely try that out. And so far, we're not having much stats for Trend Druid and Drum Druid, like here's a Trend Druid and it's doing poorly. But I think there are some good iterations of Drum Druid that can do well right now as well. We're just gonna have to give them time. On the number 2 spot, we actually have Highlander Hunter, which has been picking up quite nicely, and this is a 40 variant, so it's gonna be insanely expensive. Like, look at this, literally nothing but legendaries at the bottom half. Yeah, Highlander Hunter right now is sitting at 60% win rate with a very good sample size, so maybe it's time to try that if you obviously have the resources for it. Like, this is insanely expensive. How much is this even? 18 legendaries in this one, damn. Yeah, it's basically the good old Beast Hunter from back in the day, but we're also running things like Thunderbringer, and for that to work you also have a couple of elementals like Neptulon, like Ragnaros. We obviously have the good old Beasts in there as well. The Titan is helping pretty nicely. We have the Secret package in, with Hidden Meaning and Wandering Monster being the best bets. Titan Force Trap is also in here for extra secret action. But yeah, I'm not gonna go over 40 different cards in a Highlander deck, so you get the gist of it. It's basically Count Hunter, but in Highlander form. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show, and Paladins used to be bad ones for you, but now it's gonna be slightly better. Highlander Shaman is looking a bit iffy as well, and Rage Warrior as well is not amazing. But the rest is very green, so as long as you don't curve out absolutely trash, it should be fine. For the mulligan, here's what it looks like going first. Agramar apparently is pretty nice, but try to be curving into it, like you don't just straight up keep it. Teldurin can be pretty nice though. Awakened Tremors is great. Spirit Poacher, Costumed Singer, Posit can be good. Titan Force Traps, the good 1-drops are pretty decent too. Wild Spirits, the Sneaky Snakes, and heck, depending on the matchup even, a Reno might be a keep. As for on the coin, Reno again pretty amazing, you could coin it as soon as turn 7, Greedy Partner helps, could even coin it as turn 6 like that. Selective Breeder can help with early Hollow Hound and whatnot. Teldurin is pretty good still, the Forge Traps, Awakened Tremors, the Wild Spirit package, Sneaky Snakes, and yeah, basically the good early game, plus Reno. For other good Hunter decks, as you see, Highlander is sitting at a healthy 60% with 1400 games, so that's pretty nice. Arcane Hunter is looking quite better nowadays, actually, with 57%, so that can also work. And we already saw what the Beast Hound Hunter is looking like, so yeah, there's that too. On the number 3 spot, we have Rainbow Mage doing still pretty amazingly well, and this variant is one of the better ones from Diamond 5 to Legend. It is also running the Excavate package here, so that's pretty interesting, and we also have a Nightcloak Sanctum to free some big dudes in the early turns too. The Researcher is in here as well, which helps you play around certain combo decks, like if this gives you a couple of good secrets like Objection, like Counterspell, that can be very problematic for the opponent. We also have the Tram mechanic, which gives you a Fell spell, which is pretty nice, so you don't have to look for that from your discovery of magic and whatnot. The Miracle Salesman gives you a 0 mana spell, with which you can deal 8 or even 16 damage if you actually manage to find Reverberations. We're actually not running this in this deck. Void Scripture is pretty nice still, you could discover some pretty sick stuff. Heatwave also helps you against early game aggression like Pally's still. But yeah, all around it's Rainbow Mage. Matchup-wise, here's what it looks like. An Aggro Demon Hunter used to be a very bad matchup for you, but as you see, Pallies are pretty good for you. And Rage Warrior wasn't great, and same goes for the Druids, but the rest looks decent. For the mulligan, going first, Tram Mechanic, your good 1-drops basically, Kobold Miner, Prismatic Elemental, the location can be great, some cheap excavation cards, and depending on the matchup, even the creation might make some sense. As for what on the coin, again, similar stuff. Sif, I wouldn't really consider keeping as much, even though it might make sense in certain matchups, but if you're scared about hand disruption like Teotar, like Dirty Rats, you'd probably be better off throwing her back in the pool. Blast Mage Miner, however, looks a little bit better here, but again, try to be curving into it and whatnot. And still the good 1-drops, the Prismatic Elemental, even the Researcher might be a keep here, as long as you have some Excavate package already. Like I said, this is the best performer from Diamond to Legend. We have a similar list without the Excavation package though, sitting at close second. And we're gonna have to scroll quite a lot to see something different. We have just Mining Mage here with a 40, it's still a Sith though. We have Secret Mage doing okay as well. And that's about it for Mage right now. On the number 4 spot, we have Plague Death Knight with the Excavate package, and apparently that has been performing a bit better than the original list without any new cards. So yeah, let's go over this one real quick. We have all of the Excavate cards for Death Knight right now, and we also have Reska in here, which can also be pretty amazing, and you could revive her plenty of times with the help of the treasure. We have Finley, so you can find the important cards fast. Pazik is in here as well for extra tempo. The Sarian as well, pretty nice card. The new Harrowing Ox also helps you tempo out a lot of extra stats like this. Prison of Yag also makes the cut. Primus is in here as well. And obviously the Chain Guardians too. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show, and this deck has really been picking up. But as you see, Paladins have been a problem for it, and with those a little bit lower in popularity right now, you should have a bit better of a time, but also Dragon Druid not that amazing for you. And Hound Hunter also used to be not a great matchup. As for the mulligan, here's what the stats show going first, and turn 1 Staff of the Primus is pretty amazing. The Kvaldir obviously, hell yeah. Depending on the matchup, Tome Trader might make sense. If you're curving into the Sarian, that also might be good. Chill Fallen Baron, heck, even Sir Finley apparently makes the cut, so you can actually have a second shot at finding your Helia faster, I'd assume. Pazik can be pretty good on curve as well. And I guess the Kobold Miner also might make the cut. And for On the Coin, it's not that much different. It's still basically hard looking for Helia and the good Plagues, and a little bit of the Excavate package can also help, and the turn 4 big bombs like Pazik or Tessarian can also be great. For other good Death Knights, we also see Blood Death Knight doing quite better nowadays. There's also the OG Plague Death Knight doing quite well, sitting at almost 60%. And that's basically it about Death Knight right now, the rest is just iterations of those. And on the last spot we also have Highlander Shaman still doing amazingly well, and it might even be the best deck right now, even though there's not that much sample size for a specific variant. Like, there are 3 60+ win rate Shamans out there right now with all about 250 games. So the sample size is small, but the deck is definitely very promising. This is a 30 Highlander list. It's still not super cheap, obviously, like any Highlander deck would. But yeah, it has tons of early game removal, a lot of sustain, and also a good amount of tempo potential to it too. Like things like Backstage Bouncer can be super good early on. Pazik also helps you. Obviously, Dr. Holiday is insanely OP. The Titan is pretty nice. We also have the weapon for extra damage. Giant Tumbleweed is an insanely good removal nowadays. Prison of Yag, just be careful not to play this when you already have Dr. Holiday, because for some reason, every time I do that, I end up breaking my weapon with a stupid spell. Reno's a no-brainer in here, obviously, and we also have Yaxaron at the end. You could consider different things in your ETC, so yeah, slap in here whatever you feel is going to be important in the matchup. Like, we have Framester in here, which is going to help you against Highlander decks a lot better. We already run it a single copy, but a second one really ensures that the opponent is going to remain non-Highlander. Glacial Shard can be insanely good against big minions, especially against Control Warriors, so you freeze their face. And Cold Storage can give you extra important minions like Dr. Holiday, like your Titan, like your Yogg, or something from the opponent. Mulligan-wise, the stats are really small, but here's what people are keeping when going first, and yeah, you want your cheap stuff early on. Dr. Holiday, Framester, especially if you're suspecting Highlander. Greedy Partner is gonna help you curve out faster. Schooling is always great, and even Reno could be a keep, like it is actually a keep a lot of the times. Turn the Tide is also pretty nice. The Backstage Bouncer as well, Jam Session. Trusty Companion actually has quite a few targets for you to pull. Like, you could slap it on your Shockhopper, or on Nagas, or even on some elementals so you can draw your Glacial Shard. You could even do it on a Beast, and that's gonna give you your Viper, or your other Shockhopper and whatnot. You could also consider keeping the Watcher of the Sun. As for when on the coin, it's not that much different. You still want obviously Holiday, your Reno. Pazik becomes a bit more keepable here as well, but the rest looks the same. For other good Shaman decks, like I said, there's plenty of different iterations of Highlander Shaman at the top. We have Totem Shaman sitting at 56, which is decent. But Elemental Shaman is looking like trash, same with Major Shaman. For the classes we didn't mention, we already looked at Demon Hunter, we already looked at Hunter, we already looked at Warlock as well. Same for Pally, so that leaves us with Warrior, and Control Warrior seems to be doing great, and Rage Warrior is still insanely good, especially in skilled hands in top 1000 Legends. And for Rogue, we have still Mech Rogue doing best, the rest are just not as good. For Priest, Undead Priest is the best performer for the class, and that's about it. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing in the first few days of the new post-nerf meta. If you found the video helpful, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching, I'm Chris05, and I'll see you in my next video, or stream.